Hey guys, in this video I'm going to talk about super clamps. So I'm Daniel Norton, photographer in New York. I make videos like this about gear, about philosophy, about technique. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe and let's get to it. So I've been asked a bunch of times to do very specific videos about grip because I've done some videos about like, a few pieces of grip you should have in your bag or starter grip and stuff like that. People are like, can you show us how you'd actually use it? So while I am using it a lot in my tutorial videos, I thought I'd take a video now and just kind of go through how we'd use a super clamp. Okay, number one, let's just go through some of the basics. So a super clamp is about 2.5 inch clamp, go on to pipes and stuff like that. It also has what's called a wedge. The wedge we can put in here, which will then allow us to put it onto flat surfaces. So you can put it on a shelf or something like that, right? In the bottom of the super clamp, you've got this hex, right? The hex right there is going to give us strength, right? The bottom of the pin for this is a hex shape. So when I put my pin into it, it's not going to move around, right? If you just take a regular round pin and you put it into an area and you only hold it together with a screw, what's going to end up happening is some torque on it will make it move. The super clamp kind of avoids that problem. Now, there's another kind of part of this, right? You've got this little button here. If I try to put my pin in, you'll see it doesn't really go in, but when I put the button down, it does. Now, I'm basically good to go, right? It's not gonna move no matter what. I will still tighten this, of course. And of course, I should say if you don't have a proper super clamp pin, you can actually put a regular pin in there and just tighten it. But again, it won't have that ability to reduce the torque. Now, you've got two different types of handles on these. This is kind of your standard handle, which is bigger, so it's gonna allow you a little bit more strength. You've also got this kind. This one's made by Matthews, also called a Maffer clamp. It has a smaller handle. Smaller handle is going to be nice. You want to jam it against a wall and get in there and have some space. So two different types. The other type's going to give you more torque. This type's going to give you a little bit better space. Both take the same hex. Okay, so what do we use these things for? Well, the most common use for photographers is going to be to hang a light. So let me show you how we'll do that. So you can clamp onto a lot of different things, like I said, but in this I'm going to use an auto pull. Now, auto pulls are great. That's a whole other thing. But in my studio on 36th Street, we had a very narrow space. So what I used to actually do is leave auto pulls set up kind of really super close to the wall. And I would use my super clamps so I could light my background lights so they could be further down the set, without having the legs of the stands get in the way. So I'm gonna take the wedge out, and very simply, it's a clamp, right? This should be pretty obvious, I guess, right? I'm gonna clamp it down here. Again, this is 5/8, which is standard. Grab my Pro Photo light here. This is a B1X, it's like 7 pounds-ish. So again, 7 pounds. This will easily hold it. This kind of clamp can hold something like 30 pounds. And there we go. So I got my light on here now and it's good to go. So it could be close to a wall. It could be, floating in the middle of space like this. And what's cool is, on some level you can move the light like this, if I want to aim it. And I can also twist it, by tightening or loosening this part here. So you've got some mobility. You do have a little bit of functionality here, but if I was going to actually put a light on here long term, this is probably not what I would do. The better way to do that, take this off, is going to be to use this thing. So this is an extension arm. They make a couple of different sizes of this. Basically, you've got, you're going to be able to put a right angle on it. That should be pretty obvious. This here, it comes with a regular standard stud. It is actually hex shaped. So you could put the stud from the super clamp in here if you want a little bit more, strength. But for what we're gonna do, this shouldn't be a problem. So I'm gonna use the original pin that came with it. And this pin that comes with it is actually a 1/4 and 3/8 fitted. So at the top with a screw. So if you wanted to screw something into it, you could also do that. All right, so I'm gonna put this in here. Now, just like, you've probably seen me talk a lot about when we use C-stands and I use the arm and the pin, right? The idea of using the right angle is going to give you a lot more strength. And in this case, it's going to give us a lot more functionality. So let's see when we put the light on now. Cool. So now our light is facing up, if you will, which gives us the control to move it really a lot of different ways, right? So we've got a lot of options here. This is also going to be important if you're using some kinds of hot lights that can't be put on their side. Some lights you have to put straight up and down. Not usually an issue with strobes, but there are some lights that's an issue with. So that's pretty cool, right? We can do that. This angle, this extension angle here, you could also, in theory, because it has a 1/4-20 on top, you could put a camera on it. But screwing a camera onto this wouldn't be the best bet. If I was going to do that, I would use something like this. This is basically a camera bracket for a magic arm, and I'll do a whole separate video on magic arms because they're a whole different thing, right? But essentially, you've got your 5/8, which will go on here, and then you've got your 1/4, which screws into the bottom of the camera. So we could very easily put this one on here like this, and we could mount our camera directly to it. Okay, so here we have the camera mounted directly to it. It definitely holds it. It's not a problem. You are somewhat limited. I mean, you could spin it, a bit like that. I suppose you could turn it from here and tilt it, but again, this is not ideal. If we're gonna put a camera on here, I would either use the magic arm, which again, I'll do another video about, or there's other ways to do it, which I'll talk about in a minute. Another really common thing to do with super clamps, which you probably see me do a lot, and maybe you'll notice now when you look in videos, whenever I hang seamless paper, is you've got these U-hooks. So the U-hook has, again, the hex fitting. We put it right into the super clamp, and we're able to basically hang our background paper, right? We've got 2 of them come in a set. You can put a bar across. Or the other thing I use them for a lot is I'll put this on a stand and I'll hang a sandbag, especially a rolling stand. That way I don't have to keep picking the sandbag up and down. I can literally just hang it there. Or if you have a battery powered light that uses a separate power pack, like let's say the Profoto B2, you could hang that from here as well. So lots of uses for the U-hooks, and they're pretty cheap. So probably worth picking up when you grab your super clamp. Now, they also make, for super clamps, these kind of joining pins. So they're hex on both sides. They make a couple different lengths of them. So if you needed to, let's say for instance, we had this pole here, and I don't know, for whatever reason, we wanted to join something else to it or suspend something else that was another pipe, we could take our second super clamp and basically put it on there. It goes on a few different ways as far as like angles and stuff. And it gives you some options to basically, tighten up 2 things together. Now, the other thing that you can do, or buy, I should say, is they've got what they call a double super clamp. And that actually has 2 of them already affixed together, and they're in a right angle. So what's nice about that, clearly, is you could use that even for a background, but you could clamp it down. So you could do a lot of things with that. That's maybe a better way to put if you want to do like some kind of a post for, let's say, a slider for a video camera or something. You'd want the double super clamp. And again, I'll put links to all that stuff in the description. Okay, so like I said, if you're going to put a camera on this, there is a proper tool for it, which is this. This is basically 3/8 with a plate on the bottom, like for a tripod. And in the bottom of it is a hex. So again, just like everything else, goes right on, gives you a nice secure mount. Now I can screw my tripod head onto this, and I can mount my camera to it. So I could do it on this pole, I suppose, if I really wanted to. Let's say you could throw a ball head on here or whatever, and you'd be able to make that work. But in a more practical sense, the times I've used this more is to put it on something flat, like something tall, maybe like a ladder. Okay, so I have a ladder here. Let's say I want to get a nice high perspective. This ladder's not super high. I think my tripod almost goes this high, but if you had a very tall ladder or some kind of platform, or you're at let's say a sports stadium and you want to like put it to a bar, you could do the same technique. So basically, again, I'm just going to take my super clamp, which is on this auto pole. Now for this, because the top of this is flat, I'm going to use the wedge. And guys, most super clamps come with these wedges, but if you lose them, you can buy replacements because they do disappear. All right, so let's do this. So here I am, and good to go. Like this. Gonna throw my trusty camera on there, and so this is a really nice technique, guys. And basically, now I can move my camera around. This is a full tripod, head, so I have all the movements that I normally would have. You could put a gear head on here. You could do anything you want, really. And this is good, again, for hanging a remote camera. It's good if even if you're mounting the camera, you just want to bring it to something, like a sporting event or something, like I said, or, anywhere, a bench, in a park. And you could basically set up and do a time lapse. You could clamp this thing to the back of the bench, put the camera there, and do a nice time lapse. So there's lots of options here. And really, it's one of my favorite pieces to get. And it's not that expensive. And again, people don't think of it. It's one of the things you don't usually think of because everybody's thinking to put a light on it. But the super clamp is so versatile. You can put cameras, you can put lights, you can put backgrounds. It's really the clamp that, like I said, I'm doing this one first because I think it's the clamp that most photographers are going to want to have. Okay guys, I hope that was helpful. So that's the super clamp. If you are just starting out and you don't have any clamps at all, that's probably one of the first clamps you should grab. So versatile, so many things you can do with it. I probably have about 20 of them scattered around the studio doing different tasks because they're just so useful. And again, not so expensive. I'll put all the links in the description for all the stuff we did. So if you guys have questions though, let me know. Let me know how you guys use super clamps because I'm sure that you have other uses for them that I haven't even begun to think of. They are, again, one of the most useful clamps you could possibly have. Oh, and I always get asked, yeah, a lot of the t-shirts I wear are ones that I made myself. I have a Teespring t-shirt shop. If you guys want these t-shirts, there'll be a link, below. You guys can buy them, help support the channel. I appreciate that. Follow if you haven't already and ring the bell so you get all the new notifications. And I'll see you next time.